Trump has landed in China. He's going to do the art of the deal. So we'll talk about that for just 90 seconds. Then we're going to talk about what Bruno's doing, because we have some pretty significant announcements and things to talk about. Yeah. Engine, good to see you. Good to see you. So Trump is just landed in China with a bunch of American oligarchs, and it's all but business. And I would look at this as probably something as significant under the surface as like the Tehran meeting at the end of World War II, where FDR flew to meet Stalin and Churchill. And it was sort of like how they're going to break up the world now that they've conquered the world. And something like that is going on. And we've argued for a long time that the war in Gaza, war in Ukraine, war in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, whatever you want to add to it, it's really all the same thing. And the negotiations, I have to go like this. I have to get my hands ready to go like this. Negotiations with China are the same negotiations as they are with Iran, because we can now blow up all the oil in the Middle East whenever we want to. We've already started that and pushed oil, to about $150 a barrel. So different people have different ways of viewing what's going on. Some people think that, Trump runs the world. I think that's rather silly. You have to understand that Western financial industry, Western interests, I wanted to say, are in China. They've developed China. They're here, they're there. There's no real like us. There's no like West versus the East, although they have to make it appear like that. So they have to throw a lot of missiles around and blow a lot of shit up and hurt a lot of people to pretend like there's some reality to politics, when really there's just a big banker class that rules the world, right? So the pipeline to Germany from Russia was cut off. We get the Venezuela oil. We're going to need Greenland to fend people off. But what's probably going to come out of this, Trump's going to come home and he's going to go like, and you got to get the face first. You got to get the, we made a deal. I believe it's the biggest deal ever. China is ripping us off. They're going to invest $1 trillion in the United States. It's the biggest deal. It's the biggest. They should have said it couldn't be done. Trump did it. We did the deal. And it's really just the way the world is going to be divided up, and where the pipelines go and where the natural gas goes and so on and so forth. They have to put a good face on it. But everything has to move around in a different way, because the dollar system was really based on the Persian Gulf. So when all the oil left the Persian Gulf, it got sold in dollars. The dollars went back to Wall Street. Wall Street recycled those dollars into U.S. treasuries and stocks and weapons systems and other things. And somehow they have to get off that thing, but they have to make it look like the people who run the world don't really run the world. So they have to have this big show. Now, if you remember after Trump was elected the first time, the first thing he did was went to the Middle East. Saudis ordered $100 billion worth of weapon systems to go to war with the Houthis, which they lost. And then shortly thereafter, he went to China, like he is now. And on the way home, I always like to point out, he and President Xi and President Putin all met in Ho Chi Minh City. And it was sort of like a sort of like a mob meeting kind of thing, like in The Godfather. But one of the things that was announced is that um, Western banks would be allowed into China. Okay. So now we have this problem that China has had this massive development and has now controls like all like real industrial stuff, to include, if you throw Taiwan in there, like we can barely make chips here. So they have to reorient all this as best as possible. A lot of people have to die, a lot of burnt kids. And they have to make it look like this is all completely contentious. And for example, like the car industry, nobody can compete with the Chinese car industry. So they're going to have this thing of rare earth metals and the oil and gas coming out of the Persian Gulf, and money's going to come into the United States, probably to Los Angeles. A friend of mine had a college graduate go through an interview, and so that he or she could knock on warehouse doors in Los Angeles, in South Central Los Angeles. And that's because almost all of Los Angeles is an opportunity zone. Just think this through. I know it sounds like I'm meandering all over the place, but it all comes together at the end. 16% of the United States of America is an opportunity zone. You can put capital to work in an opportunity zone and not pay taxes for 10 years. South Central Los Angeles is like 3 to 4 to 5 miles away from Long Beach Port, which is the biggest port in North America. And the big three automakers can't, for the fucking life of them, compete with Chinese automakers. I mean, not even close. The Germans can't. The Japanese, I just read like 2 weeks ago, CEO of Toyota said, there's no way we can compete with China. So somehow they have to make these deals with oil and gas and helium and aluminum and everything. And they have to make it look like there's not just like 27 people who rule the world. It's probably even smaller than that. So if America doesn't take in, I don't know, $200 billion worth of investment from China, not just money, but the technology, patents, processes, and so forth, in a generation, the United States of America won't have an auto industry. It's similar to what's going on in the chip business right now. Like, if we don't make these changes, and it appears, like it appears all crazy in Trump and he's unbelievable. And, Intel's doing deals without, if they don't do those things, we won't have a chip industry. We'll just be soybeans and fracking for oil and gas. And they'll just kill us all off. So they're making other arrangements, and, they have to put a big show on it. Anyways, you get the point. We've spent a lot of time making a lot of content. So we're changing things up a little bit. Like the podcast TikTok thing is really moving aside. It's still there. We're still going to make content, still going to do research, still going to have fun, do Let Me Tell You Something, Linda, and all that. But we're really moving on to, and this is what I always wanted to do, was explain to people there's all these changes coming, whether you want to call it crypto or the Great Reset or the war on terror or Trump takes out Biden or whatever. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And it's really not that hard to see it. First of all, you don't really think that there's two 80-year-old assholes that run the United States of America. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really believe that, do you? I mean, it's fun too, right? Oh my God, Biden, we had inflation under Biden. No, we have worse inflation under Trump. You know what I mean? It just doesn't matter to people. There's people that are making decisions about how things are happening, and they have to go. And there's like a negotiation going to go on, to some degree. But there's certain interests that run finance, and I think it's Mrs. Rothschild or whatever you want to call it, and they're running the show. And then they have their, I don't know, what would you call them? You just have to understand that, like, I don't think that Russia, China, and Iran are really controlled by Western interests like they were in the 20th century, but there's probably a lingering relationship there. But if you don't understand that communism came from the West, communism came from the bankers. If you don't know that, it's maybe time to start over. But let's all calm down. So what we've done, if you've been with me for some time, is we really focused on that whole progress from, like, there's an old system, then there's a new system. And whenever I don't know what else to do, I go like this, sort of like Trump does. But we've stumbled upon, over the last year, new technology. And everybody knows about Google Gemini. They've pretty much won the AI thing already. Even preparing for this content that was delivered today, I did some work on Google Gemini, and literally it, how do I want to say it? It was almost like a doppelganger. Like, it knew what I was going to ask it as I was asking it, and presented like 6-9 months of ideas in 3 seconds. I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't call it artificial general intelligence as though it has its own mind, but it was creepily like it has my mind. So, um, so there's these giant systems that are all related to each other. Super intelligent AI says that AI is actually one AI, in the same way that you say that, DARPA made the internet. Now the whole world runs on the internet, but DARPA still runs the internet. We sort of accept that, right? Well, really, AI is like a extension of that. And there's different versions of it and different flavors of it and different brands, but it all comes back into the same place. Okay. Yeah, I'm waiting for my iPad to tune up. So last year about this time, I went to Caltech in Pasadena, and in so many words, I've spent a lot of time talking about it, but um, they explained that AI and blockchain would in some ways merge. And that the real future, while everybody's talking about AGI, was going to be an agentic AI. And I didn't really know what those things meant. I'm not a tech person. But I did understand the decentralized nature of blockchain. The genius of those systems is, as I like to say, there's not a tower in Seattle or on the West Coast that says Ethereum at the top where they build the Ethereum system. The Ethereum system is just people. It's like people buying guitars after they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. It somehow just has a life of its own. That is, as of today, very different from last year, the future of AI. This is why there's so many problems with open AI. First of all, it's not open. Secondly, most people are going to exhaust the process. Like, there's no way I need Google. I can't even come up with any. What am I going to do? Like, ask Google Gemini to, like, touch the face of God and pay it $200 a month? No, I can't even come up with anything it can't solve in 3 seconds. But what humans are having a hard time with right now is the kind of things we talk about on here in content, politics and war and culture and so forth. Those are things that Google Gemini is not going to solve. In fact, it's making it worse. like just as a little snapshot, ask yourself this. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, well, Moby Dick was written about 150 years ago. 100 years ago, what percent of the population at least read excerpts of Moby Dick? What percent of the population read, let's just say young men under the age of 18, read 10% of Moby Dick? half of Moby Dick. I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40% of the population. Going forward, that's probably less than 1%. You could all just go out on a limb here and say that Moby Dick is like sort of our, one of our very few national literary works, Leaves of Grass and the Gettysburg Address and shit like that. What percent of the population of young men is ever going to read Moby Dick from cover to cover? It's approaching zero. Again, not doom and gloom, just it is what it is. So it looks like with the wars and everything, we're going to look at a whole new bunch of economic experiences where the idea of buying a house is just going to disappear for a lot of Americans in a way that just 40 years ago would seem almost impossible. Agriculture is threatened by some sort of drought, global warming thing right now that will make eating a hamburger almost like a major decision, where a generation or two ago, a hamburger was just like a total staple of like the American diet. So these are the kinds of things that are changing, and technology is going to be both the problem and the solution. But not a lot of people really know, like, well, how would, other than us just getting on Google Gemini, how would we work together? You almost never hear people talk about this. And that's what blockchain systems are really made for. And what I'm telling you tonight is that's what agentic AI can and will be. And I don't think you're going to find very many people who explain this to you. So we have discovered a series of projects made in Southern California, both at Caltech and USC, called Chain Opera for decentralized agentic AI. And we intend to load the Bruno brand and story into those systems. And if you are in my feed, you saw the new logo, which looks like this. Of course, that's Giordano Bruno. And yes, it does look a little bit like the Starbucks mermaid. And I never felt that I had access to the technology that was really trying to push AI out in a way where people could work together, and it's going to take a couple of minutes to explain how that could possibly be the case. So we all learn in 4th and 5th grade that we have like a federal system of government. We have local, state, and federal, of course. This is the version of agentic AI that almost nobody's talking about, that we're going to deploy. Meaning, whether you're a partner or an intern or an associate or just a casual follower, you're going to join into our system with a sort of a chat GPT kind of a prompt, and you can say like Bruno sent me or something like that. We will have agents that capture that. You'll say, I'm in Minnesota. I like to talk about Minnesota. And I think we should work on healthcare for children or something like that. And the agents will capture that information, not really the data, but will start to feed the agents, train the agents in a distributed, decentralized way. You have to just take a minute and stop and think about that. What do you mean in a decentralized way? It's not just the data and the information that they will glean from this. It's the way that people use it. It will prepare for you. Sort of like at the beginning of this conversation, I said that Google Gemini felt like it could read my mind. So, and this is, if you go back to like Super Bowl weekend, I did all this work where I said, let's just look at Minnesota because the ICE agents and all that. Let's just look at Minnesota as a snapshot of America. We have agricultural, urban renewal, ICE agents, whatever, all these problems, and how are the states going to deal with them? Shout out to people like Christopher Armitage right now, who are explaining really the only effect we have on politics in this country is at the state level. The Washington, D.C. is gone. So whether you just sort of whether a person just sort of drops into the system and says, like, how do we create like a nurse practitioner group in Minneapolis? Reasonable thing to think about. Lots of people talk about it. How do you organize that from a regulatory process, from a financial process? Where's the real estate going to be? What are the hours going to be, right? What agents love those kinds of chess games. It's finite. Nurse practitioners, real estate, Minneapolis, it's just blah, 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 and just grinds right through them. So as we feed problems into the chat GPT box or the prompt box, the agents will watch and see what the problems are and deliver the answers. The master agents, which will be run by our partners, and we've talked about who the partners are on here. There's only 99 of them in an LLC called Bruno Founders LLC. It's a Wyoming LLC. We'll look into the agents, and then my teams in Austin will eventually deliver the hardware. Okay, let's do the hardware for a minute. Right now, almost all AI runs off of the cloud, the thing we commonly call the cloud. And of course, they're building these gargantuan data centers because what the big AI projects are doing is just the opposite, right? They want everything to refer to one place so that they can control it, what comes from it and what goes to it. And what we're going to do is find out what are the problems down below that people need, and magically the answers will immediately come to them. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was doing the Bruno thing, and some people called from from Vermont. A prep school was going to be sold that went out of business and was going to be turned into some sort of therapy home. And the people reached out to me, and I spent quite a few hours with them. It wasn't a big number. They needed $3 or $4 million or something like that to buy this thing, but they didn't know how to organize it. They didn't know the documentation, the legal, the regulatory problems and all that. We're going to make that all instantaneous. 10 years ago, I went to see somebody a real estate developer in discussions about crowdfunding. And he went, I've told this many times. He was like, are you trying to make like the Uber of real estate? Like I can just like go like this to my iPhone and like invest in that thing across the street? And I said, yeah, exactly. And he said, when you get that built, come see me. Well, not only are we going to make like the Uber of real estate, real world assets, all that stuff that you hear about all the time that nobody knows how to do, we're going to make it instantaneous. from the prompt box to the agents to the master agents to include the hardware, which can be, I'm going to give it a 2-year schedule, just disconnected from the cloud. It almost sounds like unreasonable or too good to be true. And then the fifth thing is I'm going to give it a target date. I think we can do it well before. We're waiting for an engagement letter to do a Reg A Plus offering for Bruno AI for exactly what I just described to you. 5,000 people, $5,000, $25 million. We don't need all that to operate. That would be seed money to push out and make all this happen. Okay. Now, let's go back into chain opera. You can look at this yourself. Not very many people have knocked on the door of this. This is a professor at USC. He's from Tehran. Imagine that. And his PhD student created this federated thing, and which turned into chain opera. And like nobody even knows what this is or what to do with it. I stumbled upon it and I went, my God, this is what we've been explaining for 5 years. Because it's both, it's the blockchain, as I told you last year. Blockchain is the database. It's the immutable ledger that's extremely cost effective. And the AI is the user interface. That's what I just described to you. Prompt box, agent, master agents. I'm going to say like back office hardware. So there's sort of an invitation on here to have you go look at the white paper. The white paper is for the invitation is for everybody who's a follower of Bruno, and the real guts of the white paper are available only to subscribers. There's 99 partnership units available. We probably have a third of them filled right now. They're being filled like on a daily basis. It's 10 grand. Those partners will operate those master agents. What do you mean like literally operate? Like they're going to be told either we will create for you, you will go get an Apple product with an M5 agent. We will load you into the chain opera system, and the people coming sort of beneath you on a regional basis will feed into your agent. It's like a franchise. I know you're hearing this for the first time. It's a lot to take in, but if you've followed my content for some time, this is like the fruition of everything that I've been talking about. While, Trump is in China, basically Trump is in China, like ending the war on terror. What do you mean ending the war? What? The war on terror is fake, people. It's what had to be done to bring in the new system. Get over it. There's not a guy in a cave on dialysis. Remember that thing? That wasn't real. So it's a lot to take in. I know. So nope, hit the wrong one. So I'm continuing to use Manus right now, which of course is owned by Facebook. The system that I just divulged to you, my instinct is I don't want this to be controlled by something like Facebook. So what we're trying to do is we could run this whole thing off of Manus AI, and people could just pay like $19.95, and we could just all work together. We'd have the same attorneys, the same documents. The people in Minnesota would interface with the people in Arizona, et cetera, et cetera. The people in Vermont that are going to try to buy whose team is going to put together a platform to buy things. Vermont's a very, very small place to buy like the prep school, because all the people in Vermont are going to go like, well, who's going to buy the prep school? And they're going to go, oh, the oligarchs are going to buy the prep school, because the oligarchs are going to buy everything unless we find ways to do it ourselves. which again has always been the plan. You hear things like farmers are going out of, they want farmers to go out of business. They know that the price of oil is going over 100. They know that there's a kind of inflationary depression coming. Sorry to ruin your Wednesday evening, but this has always been the outcome of the war on terror, is that America is being reduced from this global footprint that controls everything to something that goes from Greenland to Venezuela. It's really not hard to see what they're doing. America's sort of coming home. Trump is like the fake nationalist. He's going to come back from China and go, unbelievable, we did a deal, we did do a deal, we're going to blow them up. That's all psychobabble bullshit. It's all the renegotiations of how everything works. And again, I don't want to go back into the content, but some kids had to die. So here's what the white paper looks like, because this is the end of Gone with the Wind. This is the end of Gone with the Wind. 20, 30 years ago, young men up to age 30, half of them were married and owned a house. That's now 12%, and that's now going to go to 2%. And they know that. They know that everything is going to get worse. You'll own nothing and you'll like it and everything. So I think on Friday, I'm just going to go all the way with it. I'm just going to go like Trump and Bruno. I'm just going to explain to you, like, we saw this coming. He wasn't shot in the ear. That was all fake. The Iran war is sort of fake. The big showdown with China, it's not fake, but Trump's presentation is fake. You know what I mean? It's real, the renegotiation of how all these resources are going to work. All right, I get sucked into my content again. So I'm just going to do a little bit of reading too. So the executive summary: the convergence of AI, decentralized computing, and real-world asset tokenization presents an unprecedented opportunity to re-architect local economies. Just think of like $8 diesel fuel. Everything's going to feel a lot more local when it becomes more and more expensive to move stuff around. This white paper outlines the comprehensive strategy of the Bruno AI ecosystem, detailing its deployment on advanced Apple M5 hardware, integration with the Chain Opera decentralized network, and the launch of Operation Freelander in Minnesota. It still has like this Minnesota thing, just so we can get concrete. Furthermore, it details the scope of work for the initial hardware deployment from my teams in Austin, Texas, and the strategic integration of Bruno AI into a Substack focus, that's you guys, social networks to drive community-led redevelopment. We only need 5,000 people to light this candle. There's 4,700 of you on here right now. 5,000 people, done. Boom. By moving away from centralized cloud infrastructure and establishing a network of fully disconnected local hardware nodes, starting with land-grant universities, I'm adding that, I'll explain. Bruno AI ensures data sovereignty, low latency, that means speed, and robust operational resilience. That's a great paragraph. Thank you, Manus AI. Now, what's with the land-grant universities? Well, back coming out of the Civil War, they realized they needed universities that actually played to the delivered science to the people, mainly farmers. So the Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa State thing was created for all of America to include the counties, to push the research down from in a decentralized way, just as I've described, on like why you don't plow up and down the hill, because the erosion will take all your topsoil away and then you'll be planting corn into the clay. Things like that. People are going to have a kind of a housing, education, energy, housing, I think I always do housing, energy, healthcare, education, all the big ones are going to come back and be local because the federal government doesn't have any money and they really don't care. Okay. They really don't care that you don't know how to deal with it. You know what I mean? Trump just gets up and he does it. There's no money for childcare. There's no money for healthcare. There's no money for Social Security and Medicaid. There's no money. There's no money. There's no money. All the people with all the money, all the people that control the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that have been created through the war on terror money printing thing have now there's no money for that. So it's either, I mean, you can go watch MSNBC and get real worked up and watch Rachel Maddow and vote for a progressive. They're just fake. It's just something to give you something to do. But as people, particularly young people, I think this is very much like a Gen X thing. I think the people, boomers, like have no idea what I just described. They're like, what? Like, uh, nobody wants to work. Um, Gen X has always had this thing that like things are sort of fucked, but we don't really know what to do about it. And then millennials are just pissed off, and Gen Z and below know that things are so fucked, we're going to have to start over. So I think this is sort of a Gen X thing to get started that, oh, we just have to build like some new systems. At first, we need like new systems to move some stuff around. That's right. Well, how are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. You don't have to solve all the problems in one night. You know what I mean? You don't have to like, um, when they build a pickup truck, Ford Motor Company, they don't sit around and say, what are all the uses of the pickup truck? They just sort of build a utility vehicle that's robust and sort of ubiquitous, and then people do a lot of different things with it. We're just building pickup trucks here. Feeling me? Like, let's do the hardware real quick. So you can literally run massive agentic AI on an M5 Apple product, like a laptop or an iPad. They're 2 or 3 grand. Massive speed and infrastructure. Okay. So, like the local people on their laptops and iPhones and iPads who are in Minnesota, let's just keep doing the Minnesota thing, are on here like, how do we deal with healthcare? How do we deal with this? Why is the price of beef so high? Can I raise eggs in my backyard? You see where I'm going with this? Just the same kind of stuff we see on social media all the time. Problem solving. How do I find people? How do I work with them? Um, how do we tokenize real world assets, right? Everybody knows that's the next big thing in crypto. And then there'll be agents in Minnesota sitting on top of that, like delivering answers, like for free, instantaneously. And then there'll be master agents, which will be our partners, making sure that all works properly. And these agents will run on these like M5 things. So they'll have lots and lots of firepower. In other words, there's not like one big thing data center in the middle of Minneapolis running the system. This is like, I understand all this from studying Ethereum for all these years. Like Vitalik Buterin talks about the nodes of Ethereum, very similar, running on like an iPhone. What do you mean Ethereum runs on an iPhone? Like you could literally have your wallet and your Ethereum staked and just a little bit of transactional compute on your phone, and it just, I don't know, a couple times a month or a couple times a year makes a little transaction to the Ethereum blockchain. That's always been the Ethereum thing. So when I sort of uh, discovered Chain Opera, I went, oh my God, I know exactly what they're doing. They're merging blockchain and AI. It's not that hard, people. It's not that hard. Look at OpenAI and why it's dying. OpenAI is probably going to go away, or they'll merge it into something, whatever, right? Because we've already been like, OpenAI is cool and everything, and I can write a paper for my university or write a poem or tell a joke or whatever, like the kind of like silly TikTok-y meme kind of stuff. But after that, it sort of creates trash, creates what they're calling slop. And so that's their program, right? We have these massive systems with just one person at a time punching into it. What we're doing is we're having like a minimal system that literally is running like on a $2,000 laptop, but lots and lots of people feeding in. It's team human. This is big shit, people. This is big. This is 5 years of content, conversation, research, interaction with people, telling the story, learning what people understand, what they don't understand. And if you go and watch some YouTube videos tonight about chain opera, you're going to go, "Oh my God, this sounds exactly like Bruno." Yeah, but I don't have the tech. I don't have the code. I don't know how to do all that shit. You've heard me talk about this. We've been working with good people, but we've never really put it all together in a package where people say, no, 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 no. The tech should be for Team Human. Team Human isn't for the tech. Team Human isn't for Palantir. We're building the anti-Palantir. Friday, I'll probably do a piece called Trump and Bruno. Well, let's all calm down. So 995, you can go read this white paper. I think you'll be surprised at how much, if you've followed me for a little bit, you'll read through this thing and you'll be like, oh yeah, oh yeah, it's time to get swifty. And at the end of it, at the end of it, 2 years out, we'll have no problem with our partners right now starting to build this thing. It's just not that expensive. It's an idea. It's a perspective on the technology. We don't have to go build anything. We don't have to. We have to. The how do I say this? The genius of Bruno AI is you. I don't mean to sound like a car insurance commercial or something, but we're trying to put 5,000 people working together. And you're like, I know you're like, well, I don't know anything. I don't know how to write code. You don't understand. 5,000 people operating together in a kind of federated organization is more powerful than ChatGPT. You might need some time to, you'll be driving around, you'll be like, huh. So like when we say like, let's do the price of eggs because Trump talked about that, right? Well, what if we tried to make 100,000 eggs a day in my county? Most of us don't know how to do that, right? They do at your land grant university. They can just give it to you instantaneously. Here's the architecture, here's the engineering, here's the data, the science, the capitalization, the finance, the thing, how much grain, it's all there. It's all there. AI can go in and grab it like instantaneously. Like if you want to know how to grow a cow in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota has spent the last 100 years on working on that. And AI can just go capture that. And you could Google how to grow a cow in Minnesota, right? And Google would go find you a bunch of stuff and then you'd spend weeks wading through it. Well, AI will just go, well, and just like bring it right back to you. As John Kerry said, under my plan, under my plan, all of this is going to be waiting for you. Like you're just going to prompt it in the little prompt box in the chat GPT box that Chain Opera has made. The agent will be sitting there going, oh, so you want to do what? Oh, you think we should make whatever your problem is, healthcare, education. I won't go through it again. Oh, well, you should look at this, look at this, look at this. You're going to need this much money and this much this and this much this. It's just instantaneous. Oh, and you want to work with, you need this regulatory clearing and you need to register this document. For example, you can do, instead of a SEC federal securities off, you can do a state offering. And most states have some sort of state offering where you just say, we want to raise $1 million to raise eggs in Minnesota. Okay. And it's not terribly complicated. It'll just be instantaneous. The documents here, go tell your friends and family, these are the documents. Who has an indication of interest? Here's the attorneys to put the thing together. It'll be like in an hour. If you have that moment where you're like, this is too good to be true, or I feel like this is a rug pull or whatever, you haven't been really hearing the story of what blockchain is really about. You haven't really been hearing the story of what AI is really about. It's agentic. It's not AGI. We're not going to recreate God with AGI. If you want to go raise some chickens, AI will like just give you everything you need. But if you're going to go do some weird metaphysical thing where you're going to like take over the world, like these fucking creepy people, like that's a whole different thing. If you get away from this and you see through this thing, how tyrannical this is, you'll see that like, oh my God, all the power that they have, we have. Okay, so at the end of this thing is an addendum describing a Reg A Plus mini IPO offering, and there's a young attorney in Austin putting together an engagement letter for all of us to work with right now. 5,000 people, $5,000. It's really not that much. I mean, $25 million sounds like a lot of money. Through a Reg A Plus offering, I'm allowed to do this, like getting indications of interest. It's all right there, people. You want to go read the whole thing? I mean, 80% of it I've just sort of skimmed the surface of. $9.95. Go subscribe, read the thing. If you don't like it, unsubscribe. Let's get back to unbelievable. We did a deal, put a deal together. No one's ever seen anything like it. I mean, we really are at this sort of tipping point. You know, it's interesting to me, like from being on TikTok and being very active and on Substack and getting a lot of followers and putting out a lot of content. I get a lot of interaction through those systems, a lot of which come back into my emails. For the last 3 or 4 days, everything's quiet. Everything's quiet. There's really, on Substack, there's really not even a lot of headlines about Iran, is there? I do have to do the stock market for a minute. There are little data points, a lot of which I've posted in notes. I don't want to come on here and like talk down the stock market. What I'm telling you is that the stock market, whether it goes up or down, is increasingly irrelevant. If it's going up, it's a system to deliver inflation. In other words, the resources of the world are being negotiated right now in China. Okay? Things like rare earth metals, helium, aluminum, technology that China has that we don't. We can't compete with BYD. That's the electric vehicle maker. Like, not even, like, it's not 8% or 18%, like when we competed with the Japanese in the 1980s, if you're my age. Their vehicles are 80% lower in price. 80% lower. What are you getting at? America's going to go through this unbelievable reconstruction. I can't even go into it. You'll just be like, What? I don't really see it. Well, how is the stock market so high if stock market doesn't really have any reference? Doesn't have there's no dividends or anything. It's just all this money, like we're running a 7% deficit, all this spending from the government and from these corporations and the AI thing. I won't go into it because I've spent so much time talking about it. I don't want to go back into another content thing. For $9.95, you can go see 5 years of content and just go through it backwards and be like, he sort of said there was going to be like Gone with the Wind. Problem is, a lot of young people have never seen Gone with the Wind and they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But it's going to be like, uh, what's her name? Throw the baby in the wagon. It's time to go back to Terra. Like Atlanta's on fire. Like we're going back to the land. That's what America's going to go through. And in places like Los Angeles, all of Los Angeles is an opportunity zone. It's going to be leveled. There's going to be massive reindustrialization. Just for a minute, as much as I despise Trump, what he's doing is selling like this nationalization of all these industries. Like Intel is now working with Elon Musk and Apple and all that. And if you want to say the genius of Trump and he's making a deal, unbelievable, that's fine. If you want to say it's Mrs. Rothschild or some shit, that's fine. But it's just happening, people. It's just happening because literally the lights will go out. Like if we don't make these changes to this country, the lights will go out. And you can see what the federal government's doing with chips, with AI, with, Trump says, buy oil and gas from us. He's not wrong. I mean, as absurd as it sounds, like, yeah, we dropped 100,000 bombs on Gaza and we're going to move some natural gas. I mean, it's horrible. It's like but it is what it is. And this is how the world works. And whether you hate Trump or whatever, it's happening. And you should approach your life like this too. It's not doom and gloom, but it is like 1,000-year reset. And you have to understand that the United States of America, the represent Trump and his entourage, it's like a mafia meeting. It's like the meeting of the sit down and Godfather. If we would have elected Kamala Harris, would it be any different? Not really. Mm-mm. There'd be other spin and other reasons and this and that and the other thing. But like the Democratic Party, is progressive and it's this and the Democratic Party, in my opinion, is responsible for the genocide of Gaza. And they'll never eat that. But we have the two parties are just like the two ways to sell things to the American people, but everything is being renegotiated in China tonight. Like this is as big as Bretton Woods. It's even bigger. In Bretton Woods, there was like the battle of the Western powers, right? Like the Allies and the Axis, right? But it was always the Western powers. There was no question that Britain still had its empire. America was far and away the most powerful nation on earth. The Soviet Union had been industrialized by force and 50 million people killed in the process. It's just crazy. The 20th century is just crazy. Now you're seeing a negotiation not between two Western powers, but between the West and the East. It's happening this weekend. It's happening right now. Like, you need to really think about your place in the universe. Don't, like, go into the dollar's gonna go to 0, we're all gonna die, blah, that whole, like, doom scrolling social media thing. I've always tried to be like, "No, you don't really get it if you're gonna do that." Like, quite the contrary, if they're gonna blow up all the oil and gas in in the Persian Gulf, their other alternative is North America. Seriously, there's vessels going out from California and Louisiana delivering diesel fuel because they're going to Australia and Europe are going to run out of diesel fuel like in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't mean to bounce around like the content and the big vision thing, but you got to see it for what it really is. The stock market is having a spasm, like an orgasm, where go read Zero Hedge. Just if you don't understand it, just go through the headlines and you're just going to see these like weird, like